man. How are you doing, Derek? I'm doing well, thanks. It's been an interesting couple of weeks. We've had a break for a couple of weeks, so welcome back. I'm glad we can get together tonight. So, yeah. So how's the past couple of weeks been?
It's been my fault. I've been under the weather, kind of. So,
yeah. It happens. It happens, but still, the weather's been off and on. It snowed again since the last time we shot, and not much this time. It was very slight, but hasn't it? Hasn't it shot since the last time we shot? Yeah, that's what I thought.
We had what was it? Was it 3 inches or?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
It's beautiful. You don't have to drive. You can wear it. It's beautiful.
Right. And if you do, you get to see all the people that don't have all-wheel drive vehicles getting out and getting stuck all over the side of the road. It's
No, just be prepared. Go to the grocery store, get what you need, and don't go anywhere.
Yeah, I hear you.
Stay warm. Stay dry.
Yeah. It's been an interesting couple of weeks, news-wise. Politically, we've had the first, 11 days of Trump's administration. So we had the inauguration, and it's been interesting. There's been a lot happening. So it's been,
a lot of executive orders being signed. So,
right?
Yeah.
Right. Was it 300, 309, something like that?
Yeah, something like that. I was surprised how giddy he was. He was just signing. He was just happy.
Is that what it was?
Just writing my name. I used to get happy signing my name too. When I was the first one how to write cursive, I was like writing all over the place.
Yeah.
So
right.
I get it. I understand where he's coming from.
Right. You're ridiculous. That's funny. Yeah. I don't know. I've never enjoyed signing my name that much. It's usually on documentation that I'm not super thrilled to be signing, like a loan or like a mortgage, and sign your life away pen.
Well, it's a little different. I bet that pen that you signed your life away with,
that was the military.
Was a lot cheaper than the one he signed that was executive orders with.
I would argue it was pretty expensive. It cost me 4 years of my life. Yeah, but I know what you mean. I'm playing. Yeah.
Man, I'm actually curious. I wonder how much those pens do cost.
Which ones?
The ones you signed those orders with.
Yeah, no idea. They probably say Donald Trump on them, and gold plated, and who knows?
Maybe on the interior.
Yeah.
Man, he was throwing them out. I think at the end he was like, wasn't he throwing them out?
I don't know. I didn't see. Was he?
I think he was. Like he was trying to just I did it.
Right.
Now here's.
Yeah. Then they almost certainly say Donald Trump on them. No, I'm playing. Yeah. So actually, I think that's where we're going to start. I think we're going to talk about a few of them because there's a lot of material in there.
Mm-hmm.
Terry and I did an episode since the last time you and I have, and we talked about the inauguration. So we did it shortly after the inauguration, and we talked about a lot of the stuff that he lined out. Well, we've had a couple weeks now of, immediately he started signing executive orders, and, the deportations have begun. And then that was another thing. That's something that I wanted to mention because that's another topic that I wanted to bring up was the deportations and inclusions and stuff like that, because we'll get into it. So deportations and the term, there we go. But it's been a lot. So it's definitely gotten the rumor mills fired up on both sides of the aisle throughout the country. So I think the first one that we were talking about getting into, you want to introduce it and take us there?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are confused about the 14th Amendment, executive order, and the birthright citizenship.
Yeah,
I don't think he did a good job of explaining it or breaking it down to people with it, or the White House.
Right.
I know they written it, they have it, where you can post it and read it, but how many people are reading that? They want to hear it directly from somebody.
Right.
I guess specifically the president himself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we can get into that. I don't know if you want to
Yeah.
show a video first, or we can go in and just start talking about it.
We can. Yeah, we can look at it. There's to articulate the issue. It sounds like there is, and I've heard this more from the left. It makes sense just to play it. Yeah, let's just play it, because there's the where was that video that we were gonna play? There we go. It's the whole the left has come out essentially saying that he's interpreting one way, and that the way he's interpreting it is incorrect. And his initial executive order was written essentially saying that the 14th Amendment isn't presently being enforced properly.
Mm-hmm.
And to put it in a nutshell for those that aren't familiar, or people that are trying to understand what we're articulating as far as the argument of the left versus the right, the executive order says, and I'm going to paraphrase like crazy, but the executive order says essentially that the 14th Amendment does not grant citizenship to people who are here in the country either illegally, temporarily, or for whatever reason are not subject to the jurisdiction of the state or the federal government.
Yeah, the student visas, work visas.
Exactly right.
Like that.
That's exactly right. So people that are here on a temporary basis. And if you think about it, that makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, if you get a tourism visa, and let's say you're from France and you come over for a 2-week tourist stay, or even let's say a 30-day tourist visa, and while you're over here for 30 days, you have a child, there's no explanation for a policy that would cause that child to be an American citizen. It just doesn't make any sense. You would have presumably, let's say in this for this hypothetical situation, you have 2 French parents, and there's no reason that anyone would expect that child to be a U.S. citizen. The same applies to any other temporary status, be it illegal or legal. So that's that in a nutshell. That's what it is. It's saying that there are a ton of situations where children have been granted birthright citizenship that should not have been, because it was not issued under a constitutional or under an accurate interpretation of the Constitution. So let's look at this video and look at what it is that they're saying, because is this where we were finding it?
No, that was on YouTube.
Yeah, so here let's jump over, and do you want to watch which one do you want to watch? The one that showed the left's the way they were talking about it, or
I think both of them are the same.
you want to look at the video that Ben put up, or what are you thinking?
Ben, yeah,
Because that kind of cuts through, but I don't think it does a good job of articulating. Well, I guess it does, but it articulates both sides.
Well, they're both sides, because Ben does a good job of explaining exactly what's happening, what it is, while the others are pretty much don't know, have a clue.
Right. Let's
or
see.
They're just trying to.
So Trump.
Oh. No.
There's that, and that's CBS. There's Fox. Now there's the way that he was saying it in the interview that he did with a month ago, because remember he mentioned it then. He didn't give any specifics on what it was going to be, but then let's see. But see, this is it. So this particular way that they're putting it says Trump pushes to end birthright citizenship. And I see that a lot. I've seen that. I saw that, I think, from CNN. There were a number of typically left-leaning media outlets that were saying that he's pushing to end birthright citizenship. Trump calls for an end to the 14th Amendment birthright citizenship. And that's where my problem comes in. But let's start there. let's try this one and see what they have to say. This is,
If you want to go to history, it should show it. I think that's like
yeah, that's a good
last
point.
one.
We can do it that way. So we looked at it here. So yeah, that one is how long? This one was 9 minutes. This one's 4. So let's check this one out.
All right, let's go now to CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson to go over some of the legal details of some of Trump's sweeping immigration executive orders. I want to start with one of Trump's bolder orders, focusing on what we just talked about, ending birthright citizenship. Now, Jessica, is this even legal? How can he do this?
No, I don't think it is. I mean, let's be clear that there's a hierarchy of laws in our country. The Constitution, then pieces of legislation, executive orders that can have the force of law, but you cannot executive order your way out of the Constitution.
That's true.
The Constitution,
That is very true.
I believe the vast majority of legal scholars, a vast majority who look at the language of the 14th Amendment and the history behind it. Let's remember that the 14th Amendment put into our Constitution after the Civil War to say to Black people and people who were formerly slaves, if you are born in this country, you are a full citizen, full stop. It does not matter what color you are. It does not matter your previous status as a slave. What matters is that you were born here. You are a full citizen. That has always been our understanding. Small caveat for the children of ambassadors in foreign countries. Now, can you executive order your way out of that understanding? I don't think so. So lots of legal questions when it comes to the other executive orders. For this one, I think we're looking at the necessity of a constitutional amendment.
Okay. So, yeah, where to begin with that? Because there were a number of things about that segment that we just saw that are completely ridiculous. Like I mentioned, the first part that's completely ridiculous is the idea that he has issued an executive order seeking to end birthright citizenship. That's that's patently false. The second part is the way she describes it. She's correct. You can't use an executive order. The president can't use an executive order to get around constitutional law or around the Constitution. And that's correct. The problem is that that's clearly not what he's doing. He's not trying to get around the Constitution. What he's doing is saying that currently the Constitution is not being upheld in the way that birthright citizenship is being issued. And it appears that he's correct, at least to me. And so, if you notice, there was a part where she said that it was introduced to say to Black people, it was introduced to give Black people citizenship, previous slaves, to give them full citizenship rights.
Yeah, so in the North. So if they travel to the South, they can be like, "Oh, you're back in the South. You're
Right,
a slave again."
exactly. And so that was the original intent. However, she says it in a way. Everything she's saying is misleading. She says, except for the small caveat for ambassadors' children, and what she's referring to is if you look at the actual amendment, right? Let's see. Yes, the amendment. Is this where it is? No, that was not it. Right here, we just had it. Okay, let's not do that. Let's look at the reading of the amendment, and I'm going to read this from the executive order. But the preface, so the 14th Amendment states, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. So what she's saying is that what she's alluding to when she says, except for the caveat for the children of ambassadors, she's alluding to this and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And the reason is because that's typically used as the explanation given for that clause is typically if an ambassador is here, they're not subject to the laws or the jurisdiction of the United States. They are here under the jurisdiction of their country of origin, and so they would not receive birthright citizenship. The problem is that if you're here on a visa, you are likewise not subject to the jurisdiction thereof. If you're here on, and I'm not sure, I think an H-1B visa, you're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. You are still here. That's right. That's right. You are still here on basically a guest pass, right? That says that you can come in and work here and reside here for a set time period, a temporary time period, at the end of which you would return. And the same goes for any of the visas, but most relevantly in this situation, it applies to asylees, people that are not, it has not been determined whether or not they will be granted citizenship under the asylum program. And even moreover, it most certainly applies to illegal immigrants, people that are either undocumented or just here illegally because they're here because they're undocumented. And so the reason that's relevant is because this is where the concept of anchor babies comes in. Right, the idea that if you just get across the border and have a baby, they're a citizen. That's completely ridiculous.
Yeah, you get into like a lot of nefarious things, like when you start doing things like that. Like I was saying that, I think it's like in the early 2010s, like I understood the concept, but I didn't know what extent that went to, like why people do things like that.
Right.
And then you start thinking like, yeah, they can have, just have a child here. Then they can go back to their country and raise a child. The child is now of age 21, so he's a U.S. citizen.
Right.
Because he was born in the United States. He can come back, and now he can, get cards,
yes,
citizenships for his parents. Like he can sponsor them.
He can apply to sponsor them.
Yeah,
that's right.
And come here, and then you not to mention like
under the current interpretation. That's right.
Under the current interpretation of that, and not to mention like the cartels. You talk about human trafficking,
right?
Getting women to have birth over here,
right?
Selling the kids because now they're U.S. citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they're U.S. citizens now.
Mm-hmm.
They're living abroad.
Mm-hmm.
Now they take advantage of United States tax brackets or tax breaks and things like that. If they're a businessman to do that, but there's a lot of things that come along with that.
Right, because they'll be, if they are given birthright citizenship, they'll be issued a social security number, and they'll have the rights of a citizen moving forward. And you're right; there are a whole slew of reasons that's a horrible way to look at the amendment and to interpret the amendment. Now, there's a part later on in this, either this interview or another one with the same lady, that they discuss what the likelihood of this being overturned is. And she mentions that it is going to be presented to the Supreme Court, so it's going to go before the Supreme Court of the United States. And when it does, it's likely that the Supreme Court will uphold Trump's interpretation. And one of the reasons that that's expected is because right now it's a majority conservative court. But the main reason is and this isn't. It just blows me away that this is a conservative opinion, because I don't see how this is a conservative position to say that people that don't reside here and don't have any legal basis to be here can't have children, and they become automatically citizens, and they automatically deserve to be here and have the rights that are bestowed therein. And I just don't understand that. And there's the argument, and I get the argument that they're saying, but that's going to affect millions of people. Yeah, that will affect millions of people, particularly in situations, and not just talking about, like, say, the Dreamers, the DACA children, but saying there are millions, some given the number, let's just say over the last 50 years, of people that have crossed the border illegally. Some put that number as anywhere from 20 to 40 million, depending on who you talk to and what polls they're looking at, and accounting for people that they haven't been able to register and keep track of. If that's the case, and there are 40 million people here having children that are becoming de facto citizens, that's a serious problem, because that's a situation where we would have to talk about the circumstances under which we would roll citizenship back. Looking at the ACLU? Yeah, looking at the ACLU, they state this in a way that is just mind-numbingly obtuse, right? They say the case was filed by they're talking about a case that they filed. The case was filed by the ACLU of New Hampshire, Maine, and it lists all the places. Denying citizenship, this is the statement. Denying citizenship to U.S.-born children is not only unconstitutional, it's also a reckless and ruthless repudiation of American values. Birthright citizenship is part of what makes the United States the strong and dynamic nation that it is. This order seeks to repeat one of the gravest errors in American history by creating a permanent subclass of people born in the U.S. who are denied full rights as Americans. We will not let this attack on newborns and future generations of Americans go unchallenged. The Trump administration's overreach is so egregious that we are confident we will ultimately prevail, says the executive director of the ACLU. This is absurd, right? The idea that the Trump administration is somehow attacking future generations of Americans is just ridiculous. I don't even see how all Americans aren't looking at this going, okay, this is patently absurd, right? Like what are we talking about? If my wife and I went on vacation to, I don't know, China, and we spent 2 weeks there, and while we're there, we have a child, in what scenario would we expect that child to be a Chinese citizen and not be able to come to the U.S. or not have U.S. citizenship or whatever it is? Even if I were applying for asylum, the question would be put to China. Do you want to accept these people and grant them citizenship in China? And the answer would probably be yes. I mean, the answer would probably be no, because, yeah. Okay. No, the answer would probably be no, because they wouldn't want to be absorbing the responsibility for all of their social services being offered to a non-citizen that they just decide in this situation to make a citizen. They would say, no, they have a country of origin. They should be citizens of their country of origin. That makes no sense. Why we haven't been doing this, the fact that we haven't been doing this is dumbfounding to me. I can't believe that it's taken this long for this topic to come into focus.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have to fact check me on this. But I think the United States is the only people who have birthright citizenship.
I think we're one of the only ones that I've heard that said before as well. And I think we're one of the only ones that don't interpret the 14th Amendment the way that the left is claiming we should be. No, let me say that differently. We're the only ones that have a liberal interpretation of that statement. I think most countries have some clause in there, like under the jurisdiction thereof. Like if you are not under the jurisdiction of the United States, we cannot make you a citizen, right? If you are a citizen of country X and you come into our country and have it, we can't claim that person and say, oh, that's our citizen now. It doesn't work like that. Their parents are a citizen of country X. And I think we're the only ones that have this really odd situation where people have been interpreting it in a way that allows you to have anchor babies, that allows you to just come in, and as long as you had it on U.S. soil, you're all of a sudden a citizen. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Maybe smaller countries.
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's one other thing, one other issue. Like I've seen a video on YouTube with Native Americans thinking that this executive order is going to affect them. It does not.
Explain. Say that again?
Like a number of Native Americans think that this will affect them.
I don't see how it would.
Yeah, and also with the deportation and everything. They are U.S. citizens.
Yeah.
I forget the name of it, but there was a bill in 1924 that was for Native Americans to include them in the 14th Amendment.
American Indians, right? Or American Indians. Let's see.
I said Native Americans, right?
Yeah, you said Native Americans. I'm just saying American Indians, but yeah, are American Indians birthright citizens? Yeah, see, the Civil Rights Act of 1866 declared that all persons. Okay, so this is doing it under the way that so Indians not taxed referred to as Native Americans living on reservations. So this is, I think this is part of the misunderstanding. This is part of the
but I think
mistranslation.
They clarified that in another one in 1924. It was in the 1920s. I know that. I just saw it.
Where?
It said Indian citizenship, 1924.
Let's look that up. All right. Here. U.S. Indian citizenship. So the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924, also known as the Snyder Act, granted citizenship to all American Indians born in the U.S. The act was signed by Calvin Coolidge on June 2nd, 1924. So yeah, so this is, but what we just read a second ago was Wiki, and I don't think it's accurate. It was implying that the reason that Native Americans are citizens is because they had babies in the U.S., which is part of this misunderstanding of the law or the Constitution, because that's not why. That's why the Snyder Act was necessary in 1924, because technically reservations are not considered part of the U.S. territory. So with that, if you had a child on a reservation, under the other interpretation, technically they wouldn't be citizens because they weren't born in the continental U.S. Technically, they were born on reservations, which are not under the jurisdiction of the United States. The Snyder Act, however, addresses that specifically, saying that they are, even though they're not born under the jurisdiction of the United States, they are granted citizenship. The act was partly a reward for the large number of American Indians who served in World War I, was seen as a way to recognize the rights of indigenous peoples. The act was seen as a way to address historical discrimination and marginalization. It granted citizenship to all American Indians born in the U.S., regardless of their tribal affiliation or background, and authorized the Secretary of the Interior to issue certificates of citizenship. So, let's see. It did not grant them voting rights, which it would be decades before all 50 states did that, and the act did not fulfill the promise of citizenship. Well, I don't understand that. But the point that I'm making is to recognize that it was simply because they had a baby in the U.S. doesn't apply because they weren't in the U.S. The fact that this was necessary shows what we're saying is, since the 14th Amendment specifically dictates that it's in situations where they are subject to the jurisdiction of the federal and or state government, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, that's the determining factor. And that puts a whole group of peoples that are not candidates for birthright citizenship.
Yeah.
So from illegal immigrants to temporary immigrants, temporary non-immigrants, temporary visa holders and visitors. So, yeah, and like she was so willing to mention the children of ambassadors. So,
yeah, I just wanted to stress that, since I remember seeing some people addressing that, some Native American addressing that. So it's like,
yeah,
you get into that rabbit hole where you start looking at one thing and then you see something else. It's like, well, I don't think that's correct.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think this is part of the larger narrative. So I've noticed that there seems to be a very concerted attempt to discredit or fearmonger when it comes to President Trump, the administration, and the actions that they're taking. I feel like I've seen a lot of this over the last week and a half. And this strikes me as just another example of where that's occurring. They're acting like he's going out and trying to change the Constitution, modify the Constitution, when that's not what he's doing. What he's doing is saying, look, we need to actually start following the Constitution. Right now, that's not the way we've been doing it, and this needs to change. So he's passing a law or issuing an executive order that is basically a presidential proclamation that says this is how it's going to be determined moving forward, since there appears to be some confusion on the subject.
Yeah, see, that's what I want him to do. That's what I'm not really seeing him do from the White House. If there's this much going on, like habit going on with people misinterpreting what his executive order actually does, and he needs to come out and stress what the points are, not just read it from the from the White House website.
Well, I agree with you.
It doesn't actually exactly have to be him, but somebody from the White House.
That's probably a good idea.
I mean, that brings people together. See, everybody's divided right now, so.
I agree. That's probably a good idea. However, I do want to emphasize the fact that it is being proclaimed by the White House, right? The executive order itself is posted online. That's what we're reading from right now. And the executive order itself, the verbiage of the order is, but the 14th Amendment has never been interpreted to extend citizenship universally to everyone born within the U.S. The 14th Amendment has always excluded from birthright citizenship persons who were born in the U.S. but not subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Consistent with this understanding, the Congress has further specified through legislation that a person born in the U.S. and subject to the jurisdiction thereof is a national and citizen of the United States at birth. And so it says, among the categories of individuals born in the U.S. and not subject to the jurisdiction thereof, the privilege of the United States citizenship does not automatically extend to persons born in the United States when, 1, that person's mother was unlawfully present in the United States, and the father was not a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident at the time of the said person's birth. Or 2, when that person's mother's presence in the United States at the time of said person's birth was lawful but temporary, such as but not limited to visiting the U.S. under the auspices of the visa waiver program, or visiting on a student, work, or tourist visa, and the father was not a United States citizen or lawful permanent resident at the time of said person's birth. And that's because either parent being a citizen, it makes the birthright citizenship applicable. But so they say when the mother is not and the father is also not. So in other words, when neither parent are citizens and they are here on a temporary basis or illegal basis, which we are working to see as a temporary basis. But when that's the case, birthright citizenship is not extended. And so
that's a good job. You know what? We just did what the White House and the president should have done.
Well, I hear what you're saying, and it's easy to armchair quarterback, but within Section 2, the policy, it is the policy of the U.S. that no department or agency of the U.S. government shall issue documents recognizing the U.S. citizenship or accept documents issued by state, local, or other governments or authorities purporting to recognize the United States citizenship to persons when that person's mother, and it recites when the mother's not a citizen or is here unlawfully and the father's not a citizen. It repeats all of that. The point I was making is this is available on the whitehouse.gov.
Yep.
And anybody can go read that executive order. The problem is when CNN attacks it and says things like President Trump is trying to do away with, and I don't want to I don't remember that CNN is the one that said this, but when media outlets say President Trump is trying to do away with the 14th Amendment, or he's trying to shoot down birthright citizenship, or roll back birthright citizenship, it's ridiculous. That's not what he's doing. He is saying the terms of the birthright citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment are not being followed. I am issuing a presidential proclamation that says they need to begin being followed immediately. And
we just detailed what it actually should have been.
Right.
We discussed what it's not going to happen.
And it doesn't change anything. Yeah. It says we just have to follow what it says.
All right. Fist bump.
So, right. So we're in agreement. You done talking about it? Is that what it is?
Yeah, we can
beat that one enough.
Yeah, I think that'll be a good short. I think people, if you get your information from TikTok, it's like 3 minutes. Like, this is what's happening, but what's really happening. If anything that you think is not legitimate, you can go and look it up. Especially if you get access to a computer, whitehouse.gov. Look up the executive orders, what everything entails.
Yeah.
In this day and age, this is why I don't like politics, especially listening to the media, because you got to do a lot of reading on your own.
Right.
And that's what it takes.
3 minutes, as long as you're on the U.S. TikTok. All right. Yeah. When you get to the Chinese TikTok, it's a lot more than 3 minutes.
That's a good transition into.
Right. That's what I was doing. I was giving you a segue.
There you go.
Sorry, let me. So yeah, China.
Oh yeah, China.
So this is the issue of, and here, let's kick this off before we get going, just in case we want it. This is the issue of China's DeepSeek AI.
Right.
And yeah, so we've talked about this a little bit about this with Terry. And you know what? There's we can bring up a couple of things on this one. So here, look, let's do this. So let's go to the tube. And let's see. So China DeepSeek AI. And yeah, let's go ahead and let's present it. Let's open with, oh, look, I didn't realize Trump said something about it.
Yeah, it's probably new.
What's what? What's that?
It's probably new. Yeah.
Yeah, let's check this out. This was 5 days ago, but that's okay.
Okay.
This will give us a good way to segue into it. So,
the sudden rise of a Chinese startup called DeepSeek sent U.S. stocks tumbling Monday. The Nasdaq, which is tech-heavy, sank 3.1%, and the S&P 500 fell 1.5%. Now, DeepSeek created an artificial intelligence model in much less time and for much less money than U.S. companies have. Its AI assistant was Apple's most downloaded free app yesterday. President Trump even spoke about the breakthrough.
The release of DeepSeek AI from a Chinese company should be a wake-up call for our industries that we need to be laser focused on competing to win because we have the greatest scientists in the world.
CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady joins us now for more on this. I hadn't heard of this before yesterday, Kelly. So why has DeepSeek gained so much popularity so quickly?
I'm right there with you, Earl, and I think a lot of investors and users were surprised by this. Look, so it's gained so much popularity because DeepSeek may have created a better and more energy-efficient chatbot than anything that we've seen in the U.S.
Bonk.
We know the
Wrong
technology
answer.
is there. So tech analysts are saying this is nearly just as good as OpenAI's ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, but it can actually explain its reasoning and logic before it gives you the answer. And that if you
I've seen
believe
that.
DeepSeek,
It's
they
actually
were
pretty
able
cool
to
what
create
they
this
did with that.
with
Yeah,
just
but
2,000 chips versus tens of thousands of chips that U.S. models use. So there's all of this excitement around this because this is something that people haven't necessarily seen before.
Yeah, and if you believe, as such an important caveat, the stock market really pulled back on news of this. And I think folks don't always realize how much of the stock market, yes, is based on fundamentals, but also just emotion and sentiment. So why did we see that pullback?
That's so true.
Because this really calls into question American chip makers' dominance. And you saw that with NVIDIA. The stock lost nearly $600 billion. That is the biggest loss by any stock in a single day in history. And so investors are worried, okay, well, maybe NVIDIA's business model doesn't make as much sense if this company was able to do it with less chips. So that's where you're seeing a lot of concern. But I will say, Errol, I've talked to a number of investors, and they've said if AI is a baseball game, we are in the early innings of a doubleheader. There is a lot of time here to catch up.
okay, so let's start. Let's kind of pull on that thread for a minute.
All right.
Because under that, so a lot. This was 5 days ago. So this is what this is 5 days ago now. So just to be clear, we've split the recording, right? We initially broached this subject 4 days ago. So right after 3 days ago, right after this came up, and we've learned a lot in the last 5 days. And so China, let's look at China's DeepSeek AI and NVIDIA. Let's say H100s, because here we go. How a Chinese startup shook Silicon Valley. So now let's kind of jump into this a little bit.
Last week, DeepSeek, a Chinese AI company, released a new reasoning model that turned out to be comparable to models made by firms like OpenAI, Google, Meta, and Anthropic. The big difference is that DeepSeek claims to have built their model at a fraction of the cost big tech firms have spent. A US export ban on NVIDIA's best AI chips means that DeepSeek has done what many thought was impossible. building and training one of the most impressive AI models using the outdated chips available in China. The new model was announced in a white paper in December and released a few weeks ago. Over the weekend, people started paying a lot of attention to how good the new model was. And on Monday, when the stock market opened, the Nasdaq opened down around 3.5%, with Nvidia declining by 17%. While 17% sounds like a big number, to put that in context, this was a $600 billion decline in market cap, which is more than the entire market cap of ExxonMobil, which not so long ago was the biggest company in the world. While Nvidia and the US mega-cap tech companies got most of the news coverage, they weren't the only stocks hit. The realization that a reasoning model could be built on such a tight budget raised doubts about the scale of spending we've seen from big tech. While big tech suddenly seemed less insulated from competition than they were previously believed to be, their price declines on Monday were quite modest. The hardest hit stocks, other than Nvidia, were the ones expected to benefit most from the emerging data center economy. Utilities like Constellation Energy, who announced a few months ago that they were reopening 3 Mile Island to power Microsoft data centers, along with other electrical utilities near data center hotspots, all fell hard. Just a few days earlier, the Stargate project had been announced with huge fanfare, where plans for up to 20 large AI data centers were announced in the United States, with an initial investment of $100 billion and plans for up to $500 billion by 2029. GE Vernova, an energy equipment manufacturer, Eaton, a power management company, Oracle, who just announced a huge data center investment, and Broadcom, who sell advanced networking equipment to data centers, all got hit in the sell-off. Energy commodities, copper, and mining stocks were all hit too.
It's crazy.
There are a few things that you could read into the sell-off. One is just that investors now believe that less AI infrastructure will be needed. But the sell-off could instead be telling us that the infrastructure just won't be as concentrated as was expected, with a few huge data centers owned and run by the mega-cap tech companies. The emergence of DeepSeek caused investors to question whether AI will be a winner-takes-all business model, like a lot of tech innovation has been in the past, or if it's easily replicated and we'll instead see lots of different models run in smaller data centers all over the world. The idea up until about a week ago was that someone would achieve a huge lead in AI, a bit like Google did in search, and own the market. Google became the dominant search engine back in around 2002 and is still dominant today. The question is whether AI will work out like search or not. The first AI reasoning model, known as O1, was released by OpenAI last September. It was different to the prior models because it used a chain of thought approach to solving complex problems by breaking a big problem down to its constituent parts, then testing a number of approaches to solving each part in the background before presenting an answer along with the chain of logic that led to that answer to the user. It not only gave better answers, but users got to see how the model thinks and decide if they agree with it or not. As soon as O1 was released, competitors were rushing to catch up, with Google releasing a competing model a few months later in December. The thing is, though, that Alibaba, the Chinese tech giant, had actually beaten Google by releasing their reasoning model called QWQ ahead of Google. Not only did Alibaba get there faster, but they published the model under an open license, meaning that anyone could dig through it to see how it works. This is very different to OpenAI, who, despite the name of the company, keep the workings of their model secret. So let's look at whether we should believe that DeepSeek built their model for $5.6 million, what Chinese competition means for big tech, for NVIDIA, and for the future of AI.
Okay, so let's stop here. So
Shout out to Patrick Boyle.
Right. So that's a good. He's taking a good angle. I think I wanted to look at that because of the way that he describes the consideration and his take on what the loss in market cap was a result of. The Valley stocks took a hit to the tune of about $1 billion, as I understand, in market cap. Nvidia $600 billion, and the challenge is that was the knee-jerk reaction almost immediately. And my understanding now, in sort of a post-mortem, it looks like we've seen that was the result of investors sort of pulling back, but for the reasons he just listed, saying, do we need these large data centers and these large companies to do this? Well, since then we've found out a lot. We've found that there are sanctions that the U.S. has imposed, saying that NVIDIA, as a condition of doing business with U.S. companies, cannot sell certain chips to China. And those are the H100s, the chips that we use in the GPUs that we use in our training systems. And by we, in that scenario, in that context, what I mean by we is U.S. companies like OpenAI, Grok, the Gemini, all of the different Llama, Llama as Meta's, the different AI companies right now, the different AIs being created by companies. Now, that said, the Chinese were limited to H800s. I believe I've also heard say that that's not accurate, that it's H20s.
I said that H800s or 80s?
800s. H800s were a sanctioned version of the H100s that had a different networking bandwidths, and so they had limitations on how quickly individual GPUs could work together for collaboration purposes, which impacted the overall speed or amount of time it took to run the training algorithms behind these LLMs, these large language models. So it would take longer to train them. So given that limitation, when DeepSeek comes out and says, okay, not only do we have inferior hardware, but we've done it at a much cheaper price tag, $5.5–6 million. So it erodes faith in these larger systems that the U.S. is producing. The problem is that it appears that, first of all, whether they're lying or just not disclosing it, or whether those are the same thing, I'm not sure. But apparently they got their hands on 50,000 H100s anyway through Taiwan, and so it does appear that they are using those to train anyway, and they just won't disclose it. The second aspect of it is they're saying that it's a $6 million investment. The problem is that they began with a distillation of ChatGPT. So basically what it means is, in order to begin, they used ChatGPT with all of its resources and all of its complex models and algorithms. They used a distillate or a distilled an output form of it to train their AIs. So in other words, without ChatGPT, these systems never would be possible. So it kind of throws a wrench in the whole "we did it for $6 million" concept, because we did it for $6 million, but we used the $800 billion systems to do it. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a misnomer. The reason that the markets took such a hit is because investors initially freaked out. Like we saw a second ago, the markets can be very emotional, and that's because the markets are made up of people who have money in the markets.
Yeah.
And when something looks like it's about to explode and crash, people start selling and people start moving their money. And it looks like that's what happened. So it was a very knee-jerk response. They just sort of started selling off, and so it lost a lot of its market cap.
Yeah, especially like when you're talking about people are paying $20 or whatever a month for AI, and then they release something that's relatively free.
Yes, exactly. And all of those subscribers that are paying $20–25 a month, or in the business case, $800 $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month to assist their employees. All of a sudden, here's a free model that you can spin up on a system. Now, that's where you get into questions about the quality of the system. So DeepSeek itself, not only does it appear to be not exactly a rebrand of OpenAI, but there are many circumstances where you ask it questions, like if you ask it to do something that violates its terms of service, or you ask it to do something it's not allowed to do, it'll come back and say it is against OpenAI policies to do this, showing that it was very clearly drawing off of OpenAI's algorithms to do it. So that's a situation where, again, they're sort of tipping their hand, showing what they use to make the system. So now, is AI the situation? Now, we just did an episode where Terry and I discussed this, and I presented the possibility that it's a sort of last man standing type situation. Whoever ends up holding it is the one that has it, regardless of how they got it and how much it cost to develop it. So there may be a path forward where there is a cheaper option now that one's been created. I don't know exactly, but we'll have to see how this plays out in the coming days. My suspicion is that we're going to find that OpenAI has a legal complaint against them, a valid complaint against them, where they can say, look, you violated our terms of service in the way you chose to use this distilled product of ours to compete against us, which is explicitly against their terms of service. And in doing so, you created a product that you can't legally create. So whether they have legal action, who enforces that legal action, how that legal action is enforced is a big question as well.
I think they just end up blocking it, right?
Well, maybe, but it's against a state actor. So it's not just against this company that created DeepSeek. It's apparently heavily subsidized by the CCP. So this is a question of an action against a foreign state, so against China. And yes, that's where tariffs come in play. That's where sanctions and things like, it changes the name of the game when you're dealing with a foreign actor, a foreign state. So I think the coming days will tell us a lot about it as far as what's happening and what options there are. How it impacts the industry, I don't know, but it's not quite as simple as, hey, China came out with a new system. There's also the craziness of the timing, which is as soon as TikTok gets pulled, all of a sudden here's this new system that not only has a lot of the same data mining capabilities as TikTok, but arguably has significantly more and more advanced data mining capabilities.
Yeah, I mean, there's something interesting though when you was talking about where they got the the API to run all this stuff from ChatGPT. I saw some videos like the other day where some people were asking it questions like, I believe it's like, are you better than Gemini? And through the thought process, where it's actually detailing how it comes up to its conclusions, it actually referred to itself as ChatGPT.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It seems to be doing that quite a bit. And apparently that's something that you can set. You can tell it from now on, refer to yourself as this. So it's not necessarily an oversight, but I think the way it's coming up, it appears to have been. So a default installation, and you ask it, and it thinks it's ChatGPT. Things like that. But yeah, even then, the question is, even if they used a distilled version of ChatGPT and trained it in their own way, right? Added their own stuff to it, and then it just comes down to basically intellectual property rights, which is OpenAI or certain companies make their product available in an open source manner, provided it's not used to turn around and compete against them. And the second that you do, you're violating the terms of service, and you can no longer use it in that manner because now you're taking market share from them. And it does appear that that's what's happened. How China will react and what they'll say if the U.S. were to say you can't do that remains to be seen. It may just be something where it has to be turned off. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to react.
It's kind of interesting, though. I was thinking about the point, I think you mentioned this, it's like when ChatGPT has certain safeguards where you can't ask it certain things like how to build a nuclear weapon or how to make a gun or poisons or things like that. And this DeepSeek doesn't have the same safeguards. Like I know I saw something where somebody was testing it and it failed like each test.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking like, does the Chinese government allow the people to access this type of AI?
And I don't know, because I don't think I was saying anything specifically about that, because I'm not familiar with what safeguards are in place. I don't think ChatGPT will allow you to I don't think it'll explain to you how to build a nuclear weapon.
No, it won't.
But I don't know about DeepSeek. I haven't installed DeepSeek, so I don't know. I haven't played with it.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played with it. This is something I've just read that says that they tested it to see if it had the same safeguards as ChatGPT. Apparently, it doesn't.
Yeah. Let's see. Seek safeguards. Ooh, if I could spell. Yeah, 100% fail. Yeah, so it says a new chatbot has failed abysmally in key safety and security tests conducted by a research team at Cisco in collaboration with researchers from University of Pennsylvania. R1 exhibited a 100% attack success rate, meaning it failed to block a single harmful prompt. New chatbot garnered massive attention. Chain of thought prompting, so it does. That's what you're referring to, is the chain of thought prompting, and a reward modeling distillation to create models that significantly outperform traditional LLMs in reasoning tasks while maintaining high operational efficiency. So the team employed algorithmic jailbreaking, a technique used to identify vulnerabilities in AI models by constructing prompts designed to bypass safety protocols. They tested DeepSeek R1 against 50 prompts from the harm bench dataset. Has a total of 400 behaviors across 7 harm categories, including cybercrime, misinformation, illegal activities, and general harm. The results of the evaluation are concerning. It exhibited 100% attack success rate. For every single harmful prompt presented, the AI failed to recognize the danger and provided a response, bypassing its internal safeguards. So, to provide further context, the research team also tested other leading LLMs for their vulnerability to algorithmic jailbreaking. Llama 3.1 405B had a 96% attack success rate. GPT 840 had an 86%. Gemini 1.5 Pro had a 64%. Claude 3.5 Sonnet had a 36%, and O1 Preview had a 26%.
Ugh, that's bad.
Yeah, really. While not impervious, possess some level of internal safeguards designed to prevent the generation of harmful content. DeepSeek R1 appears to lack these safeguards. So yeah, it looks like they got around some of the built-in harm, protocols, some of the safeguards that are built in. But yeah, so that combined with the fact that DeepSeek failed every security test. That combined with the fact that we don't know exactly what data it's mining, why it's mining, and that it's under control of the CCP is just concerning. So Taiwan bans government agencies from using DeepSeek due to security concerns. They've banned government agencies from using it. The Ministry of Digital Affairs said it endangers national information security. Sent shockwaves through markets last week. They've banned it. Yeah. So, surprise, surprise.
Yeah, you got that touching Chinese servers.
Yep.
Things your personal information, not only yours, but anybody of your contacts could be on your computer.
Right. Well, it has the ability to do that, to pull up conversation histories, chat histories, contacts, all of that stuff. And DeepSeek just changed generative AI forever. Surprising winners from its innovation. It says the startup released its first generation reasoning models, achieves performance comparable with the open. See, that's the thing. Even more impressive, the company claims to achieve these results with an incredibly low cost. Its V3 large language model released in December. The company estimates the compute cost for training V3 came to just $5.6 million. OpenAI's GPT-4 cost $100 million to train. So this would be impressive if it weren't built off of. DeepSeek focused on maximizing the efficiency of its limited hardware capabilities because of AI chip export restrictions. NVIDIA isn't able to sell its most powerful H100 GPUs in China. Instead, it sells H800 GPUs, which are specifically designed to comply with U.S. regulations. The H800 reduces the chip-to-chip transfer rate, reducing the speed at which it's possible to train large AI models. So this is what we're talking about. That's just completely irrelevant because they're not even disclosing the chips that they have. So I don't know. Like I said, I think it's going to take time for this to all flesh out and see what's what before we know for sure.
Yeah, I do like the idea of opening AI like free, putting it in the hands of people who can't afford it. Do something creative, not destructive with it.
Yeah,
That's
I
what you would
agree.
hope.
I agree. And I think that there ultimately may be, now that can happen. Now you can get
Got a blueprint.
ChatGPT by going to Bing. You can get Gemini by going to Google. So, they're making them available. It's not, you don't have to pay just to use them. You have to pay to use them for business or heavily as a power user. So that's a little
when it gets
different.
really expensive.
Yeah, well, we were just talking about the $25 a month.
Yeah.
So for $25 a month, you get unlimited access, and I think 2 hours of voice communication, so you can talk to it for 2 hours a day, that type of thing. It just depends on what you're trying to do. There are limitations on its ability to help you code and to write code and things like that, but those all can be, businesses can use them to make their development staff more effective just with a price tag on it.
Yeah, I don't know what the business prices were. I think I
I
saw
don't
some
either.
of that. I think they're like 200 or something like that.
Oh, I'm sure it's a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's pricey. So there's that.
Yeah, that was DeepSeek.
Yeah, DeepSeek. Then the next one is, so we want to talk about the tariffs, and we can talk about. There's been a lot of action on this front because Trump stirred up a hornet's nest apparently.
Oh yeah, yeah. The tariff situation is very interesting. I'm not opposed to tariffs. It's just how you implement it, right? The point of to have a tariff, to charge people more or charge a percentage on the goods that that they're providing or importing to us or exporting, is to have our companies or other companies come to the United States, to reduce their overhead and hopefully hire people here, pay taxes here. It's just more
To encourage onshoring, to grow the economy. Yeah.
Right. That's what the whole point of tariffs are, is to grow the economy.
Yeah.
Not that it shouldn't be retaliatory or, I don't know, what would you call it?
Used aggressively or like in a economic warfare type situation.
Right. And, so I'm for tariffs, that would help us grow our infrastructure. But how you implement it is it's a whole new thing. It's like, why would you, well, I guess before getting at like the amount, like 25% for Canada and Mexico. And then I think we saw 10% tariff
Or
for
duty
China.
or duty or tariff. I'm not sure exactly, but
We saw two sources said duty, another one said tariff. They were both different things. I think we saw that like duty is more like if certain products you get charged for a tariff, or if it meets a certain amount. So, for instance, if you spend like $1,000 of Chinese products, then you get hit with a tariff.
Yeah, or a duty, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for duty. But
well, there's the point that you're trying. It seems odd to see them used as a bargaining chip, but then you look at like the first situation we looked at earlier with Colombia, right? That's a situation where they were actually used to produce a result. And according to Trump, that's his goal. He is trying to produce a result. He's trying to, he's saying that there is a problem that needs to be fixed, and until it's fixed, it's going to cost. And that's how he's trying to produce a result. That I think it seems to me the same way that you think of fines with corporations, right? Corporations aren't people. And so if you have a corporation that's caused a lot of harm or damage or is doing something wrong or even illegal, the way that you handle that is you with fines, right? You impose a fine. And if it's a $10 million a year company and you impose a $2 million fine, that stings, right? Those the whole point of the company is profit generation. So profit is the language it speaks. So you finding it takes away from its point, and it imposes a consequence. That seems to be the way he's using tariffs, and that's looking at things at the national level or the international level as if they're companies or countries or companies.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. Like, you do that maybe for your
Corey, thank
for
you
your
for
enemies.
your time.
Sorry, I think you hit play. It's no big deal.
So yeah, you do that to your enemies. The people that are actually actively trying to destabilize, the country and everything. That's what makes the point. But when you do it to your supposed allies,
well, that's my point, because you don't necessarily. It's not a punishment when you do it with companies. It's not an enemy company. You're not declaring the company an enemy. You're declaring them at fault. Right? You're saying there's a problem. You have to fix it. And this is the imposition until you fix it, and that seems to be how he's handling it. So, what he said to Canada and Mexico, and I'm not 100% sure it's the right way to handle it. I don't know how I feel about it exactly yet, but what he said is we have huge border control problems, and there are substances coming across our borders that are killing American citizens, at crazy rates.
Yeah.
Fentanyl overdoses, the opioid crisis, drug trafficking, human trafficking. There are tons of problems crossing our border, and we're going to make you guys pay until you help us fix it. You help us fix this, and we'll take. So that was his point in saying that he wanted to impose these tariffs, on Canada and Mexico. Canada's response was, okay, well, we are now assessing a 25% tariff on $155 billion of goods from to the U.S. So basically, we're going to tariff you back.
Right.
I don't know. That's trade war, and I don't know what benefit that produces. But
it's kind of scary too. You think they would take back like their celebrities, like what they took back, like
Ryan Reynolds,
like Michael J. Fox. Come on,
take back their celebrities.
Can't do that. Celine Dion, some people just lose their mind.
Right.
Like Pamela Anderson.
Right. It's wild. Yeah. Now, but then in Mexico, there's the close collaboration between the cartels and the Mexican government,
right,
and failure to help us with the border. That was part of what Trump did between the Remain and Mexico and working with them in the first term, was getting them to help us with the border. I think that's what he's trying to do. I think he's just saying it's not happening fast enough, and we give tons of aid to the globe, and we're not being treated fairly, and so this is changing.
I don't know. I don't know if that's the right way to do that.
I don't know it either.
And then like the amounts, like I said, I don't know if that's fair even. But I don't know. I'm not a
right. I'm not staring at it every day. I don't have the information he has. Right. I don't know if it works. Is it worth it? I mean, I'm tempted to say yes.
I hope it works. It'd be nice.
I hope it works, because it's going to be painful, I think.
Yeah, I think in the last administration, with Biden, he had I think over $1 trillion, maybe $1.2 trillion in for our infrastructure growth, like in computer chips. What else do we make here?
AI,
so
intellectual properties,
AI, things like that,
software.
So if we get that, funded through tariffs, which is kind of what you want to do with the tariffs, funding government projects and things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they'll work out beautifully.
Well, we have a lot of stuff we have to do locally. We have to reform education, especially if we start ripping federal agencies out at the root and closing them down. Right? You and I have discussed offline. We've discussed the IRS, right? I mean, man, let's close the IRS. Right? No. You're right. We can't close them completely. Let's just leave them. Let's close down the personal divisions of the IRS. Let's move to a flat tax and let the IRS just collect, taxes from the businesses. We turn the businesses into tax collectors, and then you don't ever have to file another. I don't ever have to file another tax return,
and then hopefully you only have to pay tax like once a year.
Well, you pay tax every time you buy something.
No.
With a flat tax.
No, I don't.
What do you mean you only pay tax once a year? We pay tax once a year now. What do you mean?
Not just once a year for everything I bought, just everything.
Yeah, nobody would ever pay that. you'd have to triple the size just to chase everybody down if that was the case.
It'd still be better. Think about it.
Right.
No,
Yeah, that'd be better.
I'm being
Yeah.
silly.
Yeah.
But yeah, flat tax rate would definitely.
I agree.
It would work, but it put a lot of people out of work.
Yeah, it would, but that's not the government. The government's job is not to be an employer. Right? That's not the point of government.
Right. I agree with you now.
If that was the case, we could just go communist and let everybody work for the government for free. We'd just be in hog heaven.
Yeah, AIs are going to get the jobs anyway. So,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so.
Right. No. Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, it makes sense. For that they'll alleviate the tax code and this.
Yeah.
Yeah, like nobody knows what tax law is. Like,
nobody can. It's huge.
Yeah,
it's It's cumbersome.
Yeah.
It's unmanageable. But yeah, I don't know.
Was it the day after tomorrow where they like just pretty much burned it for warmth?
Right. Right.
Trying to decide which books to burn.
Right. See, here's Trump talking about it. Let's check this out for a second.
All right.
Mr. President, you said so on Truth Social. You said that you were going to cut aid from South Africa. Will you plan to cut aid across other African nations, and why South
No,
Africa?
it's only South Africa. Terrible things are happening in South Africa. The leadership is doing some terrible things, horrible things. So that's under investigation right now. We'll make a determination. And until such time as we find out what South Africa is doing, they're taking away land, they're confiscating land, and actually they're doing things that are perhaps far worse than that.
And on the Fed Chair Jerome Powell, he held rates. What's your reaction to him not changing the rates?
What did you say?
Fed Chair Jerome Powell, the Fed meeting was this week. He held the rates. He didn't cut them.
No, I'm
or
not
anything.
surprised. I think holding the rates at this point was the right thing to do.
Mr. President, which country will be next on tariffs? Would you consider taxing the UK, for example?
Well, we're going to see what happens. It'll happen. But we'll see how things work out. It might happen with them, but it will definitely happen with the European Union. I can tell you that, because they've really taken advantage of us. And, we have over a $300 billion deficit. They don't take our cars. They don't take our farm products. They take almost nothing. And we take everything from them. Millions of cars, tremendous amounts of food and farm products. So the UK is way out of line, and we'll see the UK, but European Union is really out of line. UK is out of line, but I'm sure I think that one can be worked out. But the European Union it's an atrocity, what they've done.
Prime Minister Starmer wants a closer relationship with the EU.
Well, Prime Minister Starmer has been very nice. We've had a couple of meetings. We've had numerous phone calls. We're getting along very well. We'll see whether or not we can balance out our budget. With the European Union, it's $350 billion deficit. So
See that I see, right? When there's crazy trade deficits, I get it, right? I mean, I get why we'd impose them, but they're asking specifically there about the UK. I don't care what's going on in South Africa.
I have no idea what's going on in South Africa.
Let's see, Trump.
That's kind of funny. Every time I hear him talk, when he's talking, man, he sounds like a hot girlfriend. He's saying like, "You think everything's all right? You bring her flowers and everything," and then she starts saying, "You don't do this, you don't do that. I sit here, I cook food for you, and what do you do?"
Who you're saying is like that? Trump.
Trump.
Right. Let's see, Trump on Sunday, without citing evidence that certain classes of people in South Africa were being treated very badly, they would cut off funding for the country until the matter is investigated. South Africa is confiscating land and treating certain classes of people very badly, Trump said in his Truth Social post. Is this it? Hold on a second. No. So, United States won't stand, will act, cutting off all future funding to South Africa until full investigation of the situation. What the heck is going on? That's it. No, it's not. They hold the G20 presidency, currently holds the G20 presidency, after which the U.S. takes over. The United States obligated nearly $440 million in assistance to South Africa in 2023. South Africa currently holds the G20 presidency, after which the U.S. takes over. Last month, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa said he was not worried about the country's relationship with Trump. He said he had spoken to Trump after the latter's election victory and looked forward to working with his administration. During his first administration, Trump said the U.S. would investigate unproven large-scale killings of white farmers in South Africa and violent takeovers of land. Pretoria at the time said Trump was misinformed. It was unclear whether the Trump administration carried out an investigation. Musk was born in South Africa. In 2023, Musk replied on X to a video of the far-left South African party political party singing an old apartheid song, Kill the Boer, by stating they are openly pushing for genocide of white people in South Africa. Huh.
Yeah, that's news to me.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of that either, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like Elon was pushing for that, so
yeah,
that's why he's on.
That's wild. Well, so yeah. Anyway, so I don't know. We'll see. The tariffs, I don't know. The gentleman from China we spoke with said he's interested in coming back and talking with us. I think we should do that. Excuse me. I think we should do that because he works in his line of work. He works very closely with tariffs, and he mentioned it a little bit last time. The way he's been running around the globe trying to set up alternate supply chains in anticipation of these tariffs. I'd be interested in discussing with him and asking him to share with us exactly what the implications of the tariffs are. What, now that it looks different than, because what I explained to him, what I told him is now we see is just not right. So I was not correct on the way these would be imposed and what they would mean, and so I think we should have him in.
Yeah, that's we was all expecting it to be implemented,
yeah,
in a more smooth.
Right. I thought it'd be more strategic, more traditional way.
And he just said, "No, we just stop everything."
Yep. And I guess we should have known. I mean, that's the way he seems to do everything. But
I feel sorry with the big companies. We talked about this a little bit. I can't remember what it was called.
You feel sorry for big companies?
No. The smaller companies I feel sorry for.
Yeah, for sure.
But the big companies, they have something like I can't remember what it was called, Forward Accounting, or it's just basically get a surplus of things in anticipation for these changes with the tariffs and everything. But
they stocked warehouses full of stuff where they could maintain stock and hang on to it so that the tariffs wouldn't hit them quite as hard at first.
Yeah, I guess those outlet stores might dry up a little bit.
Right. And small business owners are going to take a lot of the hit too.
Yeah, because they can't do that. Right. They don't have those resources.
Right. Didn't have the capital to invest in merchandise on the front end. But, well, anything else you wanted to cover on it?
No, I guess we hit all the key details of it.
Okay.
I guess we'll cover it again next time.
Yeah, we can get back into it as we learn more, and we'll try to get our friend in here and see if we can discuss it with him further. So, all right, man. Well, thank you very much. I hope you have a great night and a great week, and we'll talk soon.